A year ago, I did a property prediction for the year coming up. Today, we're going to be going back and watching it to see how right or wrong I was. Let's jump straight in. I just want to put a caveat. I have no idea what I actually said back then, but there's been a lot of chops and change this year, including the bloody government, 3 prime ministers, the interest rates, but I'll use excuses at the end depending on how wrong I am. 2021 has led to explosive property prices, but is the same true for 2022? That's exactly what I'm going to be discussing in today's video. I hate watching myself. So it has been tough the last couple of years to make these predictions, and that's because of the huge amount of changes that have been coming into place. Yes, the big C-bomb, the pandemic, but also the government intervention has meant that one prediction today can completely change tomorrow. The Bank of England went into a vote to decide whether interest rates were going to increase. Now, we kind of had these ridiculously low base rate, which is what the Bank of England's charging, and LIBOR, etc. Not the video for it. But these really low interest rates mean that the lending, i.e. borrowing money from lenders, is actually incredibly cheap. And when borrowing is so cheap, we can then pay more for property, okay, and get better returns. And so that naturally pushes up the prices. Because of all of the inflation that's been going on, and bear in mind, inflation as quoted by the government isn't actually representative of true inflation, because you might not know this, but it's based on CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and that doesn't take account of some major things, namely energy, so fuel at home and in your car, and it also doesn't take account of inflation in food, which both of which have gone up a staggering amount in the past year. So inflation in reality is a lot higher than you think, closer to 10% than they predicted 4 to 5%. What does this mean? They need to bring that down. What is one of the key ways of doing that? Increasing interest rates. So do I think it's going to be dramatic? No. I don't think it's going to go from bases of 0.25% to 1.8%, but it wouldn't shock me if by the end of the year, we're looking between 0.5% and 0.75%. So is this going to have a dramatic impact? No, but it is an indication of what you might want to start doing with your mortgages. So if the talks start again, and this comes to fruition, I'm going to be putting everything on 5-year fixed mortgages. Next. Oh, so that's the first big one there. So my prediction of numbers was way out there. What I said is, what I think it could go to is 0.75. It did go to that. And then they called it again and again. So a rule that they changed is the pricing barrier, and when they were allowed to discuss this. So now it's every 2 months they're discussing it. What also changed since then is the massive spike of inflation. So I said there, what you actually find is the real inflation is like 10%, talking about a point where inflation was at about 6%. Now inflation is closer to 12%, and so they've gone on and on and on in increases. So I was way out in terms of how much they increased it. But the other thing that I mentioned is, if they do start having these conversations more and more, I would get into these 5-year fixes. So definitely out on the prediction of how quickly it would increase, and they've done that a lot quicker than I thought they would. But spot on, I would say, with the 5-year fixes. So we started doing it, and every single person that I was talking to, I was like, I'm doing 5-year fixes. So we did, until now, where the interest rates have spiked up and the fixed interest rates, because of the swap rates, are way too high. So now we're doing discount variable rate. So let's see how this goes on. But again, 50% of it way out, 50% of it spot on there. Next, market sales. So this year we had 1.5 million market sales. So it's pretty good, actually. That's a pretty strong market in the whole of the UK. And I think we're going to start seeing a bit of a slowdown. Why is this? Well, I think we kind of had this mad rush. If you think about buses, and you're waiting at a bus for a bus outside, and no buses come in for 20 minutes, and then 3 buses come at once, right? And it's so bloody annoying. That's kind of what has happened this year. The market got closed last year, quite literally, and we've been playing catch up ever since. And all of that pressure in demand has come into 2021, which has driven these prices up over 10% over the last 12 months. Now that people are getting back to normal, it's starting to calm down a bit as it's getting into winter anyway. I think this is going to carry through. So my prediction for sales by the end of 2022 is 1.2 million, which is a 20% drop off in sales over the UK. Ooh, let me jump in and do some research. So, that was pretty ballsy, me putting a number on it there, wasn't it? I don't actually know. Let me check the sales on this so I can give you an accurate number on this, or as accurate as possible at the time of filming this. But from a market point of view, that was spot on again. What I really like doing, by the way, is looking at some of the comments on here. Every single time you get comments like this that were telling me, again, this was a year ago, saying to sell shop, like sell up, sell up, sell up. Because the market is about to go pop. Since then, the market's gone up 10%, by the way, so just thought that's quite funny. But yeah, so the prediction there was that the market would start slowing down a bit, which it has done. And let me just see now if it's anywhere near that 1.2 million. Oh, that is so close. So close. So 1.24 million is where we end up. So what is that? That 40,000. I don't think that's too bad of a prediction. If you take 40k over that, so 4,000 more each month. But yeah, slightly wrong there, but I'm pretty happy with that. Considering it was 1.5, we're looking at 1.224, so about 40,000 out. So, ooh, and I have just paused myself on that face. Oh, you know when you hear yourself back on like a phone call recording, try looking at yourself as well. But what about prices? So I think this is the most interesting of all. Are prices going to drop? I doubt it. I doubt it because of a couple of reasons. One, the supply in the UK compared to the demand is still staggeringly undersupplied, okay? So we've got this unique situation where we're on a tiny island, most of which we can't actually build on due to the green belt, and a lot more people looking for properties right now. So by the end of 2022, there's predicted to be a 1 million unit, that's 1 million unit housing shortage. Now, naturally, when the supply is here and the demand is up here, what does that do for prices? It drives it up. So no, I don't think we're going to see any major correction. I also think it's worth looking at the macro, which is the 18-year property cycle. And I've actually done a video on that, which you can go and watch after this. We'll put a link in the comments. But the 18-year property cycles goes from the crash to the boom to the crash again. And we're on around year 12 to 13, which means we should have really strong capital growth moving forward. And little blips, and it might not feel like a blip right now with the pandemic, but little blips like this really won't impact it. So, do I think they will increase? Yes, I do. I think there is going to be a capital increase, but nothing like we've seen this year. I think this year should be treated like it is a complete anomaly based on these crazy shitstorm of situations that are going on around us, right? So, I think we're not going to see double-digit growth. I think we'll probably see between 4.5 and 5.25% growth across the UK. So, if anything, I was too conservative there. So if I had to go back and make that prediction, I think I would make the exact same prediction. I think what we often underestimate is that macro. So I really like saying, if in doubt, zoom out. So what I said is I think that we will see growth this year. I don't think it's going to drop, but I think we're going to see a slight slowdown. So over the last 2 years, it's been about 23% growth across the UK. I'm trying to think of where that growth has been. We've seen about a 9% to 10% increase. So I said, do I think we'll hit double digits? No. Arguably we have actually. In a lot of areas we have, in other areas not. But yeah, if you said 9 to 10% growth this year, in the last year, that's about right. So do I think it's going to slow? I'm going to keep the same prediction. I do think that growth is going to come down to around that 5.5 to 6%. But that is one I'm bloody happy about. And again, looking at those macroeconomics, we are not producing enough properties to facilitate that. And it's kind of shocking that growth has been that good, considering the clusterfuck of shit that has hit us this year. But yeah, so yes, I was right in terms of the growth and the slowing down, but I was way too conservative and it actually went loads better than I thought it would. So
It's good to be wrong sometimes, right?
So the question is, where do I think the strongest capital growth will be? And this is all about average deficit cities. Well, what the hell does that mean, Jamie? Well, an average deficit is everything around prices in general works towards an average. So if you think about objects on Earth, or anything really in the universe, the larger an object is, the more gravitational pull that it has. And it's the same with numbers.
I give some fucking weird analogies sometimes, don't I? Just talking about a random object.
An average is representative of all of the numbers around it. And what does that number represent? As many of the numbers as possible. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But what it means for us is if it is an average, which does shift over time, naturally everything is pulled to it statistically and emotionally.
I love the way I'm nodding along to myself. I'm smart, yeah.
Level, we're always comparing against different numbers. For example, if I know an average property in one of my areas I'm buying is 100,000, that's really important. So if somebody puts a 3-bed property on for 130, I'm immediately going, where the fuck are they getting that number from, right? Whereas you might go, Jamie, I can't buy a shed for 130,000. What the hell are you on about? Until you compare it to the £90,000 house next door. You get it? So when we're looking at this average of 270,000, you need to be looking at areas that are not too far lower, but are they lower than the average? The reason why is this protects you and gives you a safety blanket because everything over time moves towards that average. So even if the average comes down or goes up a little, the ones that are consistently below are consistently driving towards that number. So the final thing you might be thinking is what strategies to watch.
So yeah, spot on that one. Really happy with that. And it's something I find people miss a lot. It's kind of like when the wind blows, it's the leaves at the top of the tree that go off first, okay? And it's the trunk that's got the most solid foundation. It's the exact same thing. So if you look at the property price increase, almost all properties within that 100 to 150 grand mark has soared this last year. Whereas you look at central London prices, crazy high prices, they've, if anything, adjusted in some areas. If not, the growth has been a lot slower. So that will always be true. And I don't understand why more people aren't talking about it. For me, it's very logical, but have a look at the stats yourself. I was spot on that one. Really good to know as well, by the way, is also when the recession comes, because there will be a recession, the most protected properties will be any properties sub-average price in the UK. The reason for that is when the recession hits, who's needing to sell off? Usually it's the things that are above average lifestyle and price points as well. So good on the downside as well.
The final thing you might be thinking is what strategies to watch in 2022. And I'm dividing this up into two players. Honestly, you've heard me chime on about this for so long. If you're new to the channel, you'll hear me chime on about this. Boring, vanilla, buy-to-lets. Honestly,
I'm nothing but predictable.
Just be as vanilla and boring as possible because they've got the best foundations. When there's change, it makes people nervous. Same as building a business. The number one thing is not having things shifting around you. You can't build a skyscraper on quicksand. So you want these solid foundations, and the world at the moment is quicksand. So if you are going to be investing, I like going for boring, safe, vanilla, buy-to-let investments. And that's the way I think you should be doing it too. And yeah, that does mean that there's going to be more demand on this. So it might be the fact that you use a deal packager. And it's why if you're working full-time and earning money and you want to get your money working hard for you, I always recommend using a deal packager. We do that as a service, by the way. We'll put a link below if you've got 100 grand or more. But what if you're...
Never miss a chance to pitch. On that note, if you want hands-free property, APG in the comments.
No, so on that one, I stand by it. I always will. Boring, vanilla, buy-to-lets. And to give you an idea, in our locations this year, our average property price has gone up 12% and our rentals have gone up between 12 and 15%, which is absolutely staggering. You have to think, like, in times of uncertainty, think of COVID, for example. HMOs absolutely crumbled, especially in London. I know people with portfolios over 30 HMOs that had to sell all of them off because nobody wanted to be around that. In times of uncertainty, people look for a solid home, and boring, vanilla, buy-to-lets is always where it's going to be at. We've
completed personally on about 109 of them this year, and our investors are taking on a lot as well. So yeah, still the same, and I would say that was a fair prediction. What am I about to say now though?
But what if you're a bit more advanced? Now this is where something gets a little bit more exciting, and it's through the realm of commercial conversions. Now, when people talk about commercial conversions, usually what they mean is office to residential. But I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about office to residential conversions, industrial to residential being primary dwelling or buy-to-lets, and retail to residential. Now, the reason for that is planning has changed over this year, which means you don't have to go through the full planning rigmarole that you do for a lot of planning departments, and actually you can get prior approval, which this isn't the video to go through, for retail. Now, a lot of employers have been questioning recently, do we need the space? Everything's gone online to Amazon and things like that. What about office space? Well, we've kind of had to be adjusting around that, where a lot of people have been working from home. And if they're a bigger, more systems-based business, they've realized that actually the drop-off doesn't really impact the profit margins. And actually they're spending millions every single year in offices. Should we get rid of them? I think what you're going to see is a lot of opportunities coming up, especially in the latter half of 2022, all about building these residential conversions to facilitate this demand. So am I right?
Yeah. I'm going to take that one. That was pretty spot on. Now, some of it went in not my favor, but for the prediction. So first of all, in the office to residential, in the past 2 weeks in Leeds, like not Wakefield, Huddersfield, Leeds, good areas, I've been sent 3 commercial to residential opportunities. One of them with the prior approval planning to convert to 47 apartments, another one for 120 apartments, and another one which I can't actually remember, but a bit of a smaller one. But so yes, absolutely. And I said the latter part of this year, more and more and more opportunities have come up because the cost of offices are just excruciatingly painful. And if you're paying your own bills and it's not included, that's even more painful. And so it does cost a lot of money. The bit that really helped with this prediction, bad for everyone, but for the prediction, with retail units closing all over, like it was inevitable retail was going to be closing, but even more so with the utility situation that's gone on this year with Russia, with allowing the gas and electricity companies to ramp up their prices. I think it's gone up 92%. We've got pubs where their costs have gone up £5,000 a month. Like pubs were already struggling. Now their costs have gone up about £5,000 a month. There are a lot of shops and a lot of pubs that have either closed and they've already started that application process on the building, or, and we all know them unfortunately, will be closing in the next 6 to 12 months as well because of how much the struggle is going on. So that's a bit of a bittersweet one. Yes, I do think I'm spot on, but it's really sad that that's one of the predictions that has come true because, you know what, there's some really good businesses out there have kind of been pushed out the market. Hopefully, a lot of them have adapted and gone online or looked at creative ways to minimize these costs, which I know a few that have, but there we go. So I'd say 70% right. Maybe slightly higher, but I did all right there. I think considering the year that we've had, I'm pretty happy with most of those predictions, but you let me know. What do you think? Do you think I got more wrong than I'm thinking? Am I being too nice to myself? I like watching things like this back, and I'm looking forward to making a 2023 property prediction. So just to recap, there were 2 bits that I got wrong. Is number 1, I didn't think the growth would be double figures again. I thought it'd be a bit lower, so good one to get wrong. The other one is I didn't expect the interest rates to quite go as high as they have this year. That's definitely caught me by surprise with some of the changes that have come in. But no prediction is going to be 100% guaranteed. I'm pretty happy with that overall. And for those people, because I'm reading some of the comments now, like, you're going to be wrong on every single one of these. Jamie, you should sell now and get out. Jamie, this is catastrophic. You're full of shit. Thank you. Great video. Fuck you. These are great. Maybe I should put the link in. You can read some of your own. But What do you think about my predictions? What do you think I could have done better on, better research? And more importantly, what are your predictions for next year? Hope you got value from this, guys. Make sure to hit the like button. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. And if you're new to the channel and you want to find out more about property and my personal predictions, make sure to hit the subscribe and the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.